Hi guys, and welcome back to my minimalist cooking videos. Today I've got a fantastic Japanese street food, yakisoba with chicken and vegetables. I'll be making this in one pan in a minimalist kitchen. Before we get into the recipe, let's take a look at what yakisoba is. Some noodles with some vegetables, a protein, and a sauce. What you choose to add is really up to you. You can let this be yours and customize it to your own taste. We're going to start by picking some vegetables. Here are a few different traditional vegetables that are commonly found in yakisoba. Feel free to add anything you'd like that you don't see here. Really, again, this is your recipe. Make it as you like it. With that being said, let's get started. I'll be starting my recipe with 1/2 of an onion. Begin by cutting off both ends of the onion, followed by peeling off the outer skin. Then simply make radial cuts down the onion to separate it into some smaller pieces so that everything cooks relatively fast. As you can see, this is the size that you're looking for. I like to use a little plate to separate my cut vegetables so that way everything is a little easier when I go to cook. Separate the onion pieces onto the plate before we move on to our next vegetable. Up next we'll be cutting broccoli. Other than dropping it in the sink, what you're looking for here is a relatively fine dice. If you're using anything such as broccoli, cauliflower, carrots, or anything that's a relatively hard vegetable, you want to make sure to cut it relatively fine and into smaller pieces. Since we are only using one pan and not pre-cooking any of our vegetables, it's really important that the size of the vegetables allows them to be cooked in the yakisoba dish. This means that it's going to be quite a high heat for a short period of time. What you need to look for are small, uniform pieces of the harder vegetables. If you're using anything that's like a softer vegetable, such as a mushroom or bean sprouts, feel free to use those in slightly larger pieces. They will cook at about the same time as a hardier, richer vegetable. Place the cut broccoli next to the onion on the plate. Get everything ready for us before we move on. Next up, we have green onions. Yes, I have regular white onions as well as green onions in this dish. To me, they taste a little sweeter and they provide a little bit more complexity to the dish, so I like to include both. However, if you only have one or the other, feel free just to use that. I'll slice them down the middle, turn 90 degrees, and dice into a nice fine small mince. As you can see here, we'll place these sliced green onions onto the plate next to the broccoli and the white onions. It's really important that we have everything in place before we start cooking. Once we start, this dish comes together quite quickly. I find it nice and easy if I have everything laid out step by step so that when I need to add an ingredient, it's ready to go in, as you can see here. There's no questioning, there's no guesswork, everything goes by the numbers. The final vegetable I'll be using today is cabbage. Here I've got 4 leaves that I'm going to prepare. I'm going to cut off the thick root part of each leaf and stack them up in order to be cut into a fine dice. With the stem thick part removed, make a small book and fold in half, which I'll cut into strips. Once you have these strips, turn 90 degrees and go ahead and dice into a cube. The cabbage takes the least amount of time to cook, and I run out of room on the other plate, so I'm going to go ahead and place this onto a separate plate before moving on to our protein. You have your selection of protein as well. Here I'm going to be using chicken. However, pork belly is extremely popular. If you'd like to make this dish vegetarian, feel free to use tofu. It is up to you. Regardless of the choice of protein, the following steps in preparation should be similar for whatever you would like. As I said, I'll be using chicken breast in this recipe. I'm going to begin by removing the skin. If your piece of meat or protein has bones in it, make sure to remove those as well. Just as we've prepared our vegetables, we're looking for very small pieces of protein. This dish is cooked for a very short period of time over quite a high heat. That means that you need to have small pieces of vegetable and thin pieces of protein. That way everything is cooked quickly and at the same time. For this piece of protein, I began by cutting it down the center into 2 long pieces, turning 90 degrees and slicing to thin strips, as you can see here. Again, it's very important to have thin pieces of protein no matter what type you're using. Place your cut protein into a bowl to be ready for marinade. Again, whatever protein you're choosing to use, this process will be quite similar. I'll be starting with some soy sauce. This is a very traditional Asian style marinade that I'm using. Simply sprinkle a little bit of soy sauce over the protein. Make sure to get even coverage. The other main ingredient in my marinade will be sesame oil. Sesame oil adds a fantastic flavor, however, it is quite strong. You want to make sure to only add a little bit to your marinade. A few drops over your protein is going to be enough. Although not part of the marinade, the last ingredient that you're going to add to your protein is some corn flour or cornstarch. What this will do is coat each piece in a small layer of protein-rich powder, allowing it to fry up nicely in a little bit of oil and create a nice, dark, rich brown crust. Sprinkle a little bit of corn flour over each piece of meat and massage in. It's very important that you get even coverage and separate the pieces. That way everything is homogeneous. And we are ready to cook. We're going to start by placing a little bit of oil into our frying pan. If you have a wok, that is even better. Here I'm using a little bit of sunflower oil. Again, you can use peanut oil, sunflower oil, vegetable oil, canola oil. All of them will work really well. The only oils you want to avoid are something with a very low smoke point, such as olive or sesame oil. Place the oil into your pan and place it over a very high heat. You're looking to get your pan smoking hot for you to get ready to cook. Once your oil is nice and hot, start with your protein. Here, I'll be placing my chicken into the pan, getting ready to stir fry. This is a very high heat, so expect that there's a little bit of smoke to start off with, and you definitely want to have your hood fan or extractor on. The marinade and the corn flour are going to combine to make it slightly sticky. It's very important that you break apart each piece of protein separately so that it can fry evenly in the oil. You want to have one nice thin layer of protein that can fry up really quickly in your pan. If it's in a large lump, it's going to be very difficult for that protein to fry and get nice and crispy. If you've prepared your protein into nice thin strips, it really will take very little time, 1 to 2 minutes per side before you start getting a nice crispy exterior. Once you see the golden brown and crispy exterior on one side, you want to go ahead and flip it so that it can cook the same on the other side. Again, this really shouldn't take more than 4 to 5 minutes maximum. As your protein begins to finish cooking, it's very important to keep it moving. As you can see here, my element is on maximum heat. We don't want anything to burn, so it's very important that it stays moving. We're going to go ahead and move on now, since our protein is cooked, to add our vegetables. The onion, broccoli, and green onion do take a little extra time to cook, so we'll go ahead and add them now. If you have any hearty vegetables, for example carrots, you're going to want to add them at this point. If you have softer vegetables such as bean sprouts, mushrooms, anything of that nature, you're going to want to hold those off for a little bit longer. Make sure to mix the vegetables really well with the protein and get them down into that pan so they get some of that really high heat. We are using the highest heat setting that we have, so we want to keep everything moving at a constant pace. If you let anything in your pan sit for too long, it can burn and ruin the dish. That's why you see me constantly stirring, spinning, and flipping the food inside of the pan. After 2 to 3 minutes of cooking the harder vegetables, as you can see here, the onion, the broccoli have become soft. We're going to go ahead and add our softer vegetables. Here, I'm adding the cabbage. With the softer vegetables in, we're going to move on to our major ingredient, the actual noodles themselves. As you can see here, I have a package of pre-cooked yakisoba noodles. You can find these in most grocery stores. Look in the Asian aisles. They are refrigerated usually, and they come vacuum packed. Keep them refrigerated, but pull them out a few minutes before you want to use them so they can come up to room temperature. I'm going to go ahead and add a nice big spoonful of cool water to the pan so that it can make a nice little steam bath for the vegetables and for the noodles. I like to mix it around, that way it can come up to temperature right before I put in the noodles. Once that's mixed in, I'm going to go ahead and make a little well in the middle and move all the vegetables out to the side. This will make a nice place for me to put the noodles so that they can fry against that high heat of the pan directly. As you can see here, I'm placing them into the pan and using my hand to shake them down and force them into the bottom of the pan. That way they're in direct contact with the heat. I needed to add 1 more spoonful of water so that the noodles could steam through completely. It's very important that there's enough heat in the noodles so that they can cook completely. I'm using a spatula and a spoon to separate the noodles as best I can as they steam and force them against the bottom of the pan so that they can cook completely. You want to let the noodles cook just long enough so that they become loose and soft. This is going to take about 2 minutes. As the noodles become soft and warm through, we are going to go ahead and move on to the final step, which is adding our sauce. Don't worry, the noodles will have just a little bit of extra time to cook in the sauce and absorb that flavor. The last ingredient in your yakisoba will be sauce. You can go with something simple like straight teriyaki sauce or straight soy sauce. If you like, you can go with something a little more complex, such as a fish sauce, soy sauce, oyster sauce combo. Here I'm using teriyaki sauce. Whatever sauce or combination of sauces you'd like to add, simply drizzle over the top of the noodles, mix in well, and allow it to come up to temperature. That's it. The dish is done. All there is left to do is dish up and enjoy. Remember, this Japanese-style street food is something that is customizable. Pick the vegetables that you like to eat. Use the protein you like to eat. Add the sauce that you find the tastiest. This basic recipe can be modified to make a million different styles of yakisoba. The important part is that you make it the way that you like it. If you found this recipe helpful, please don't forget to give this a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to our channel for more videos like this, and hit that bell icon so you can be notified every time we release a new video. Thank you so much,